Well, what I'm going to be doing over the next few days is putting together some little short pieces and clips of different stuff with my speaker build, and like the little thing I did for the studio for this workbench a while ago. Just little spot tours of things I'm doing, and with all this moving going on, I won't be able to shoot long segments, but I'm getting everything reorganized for about the third time. Because I've gotten so much new equipment in, I just had to do a total rearrange and get that bed out of the studio. That's the number one clutter. And then I've got a hallway out here, and I've got a new rack. It's just like the one I've got over here beside me that I've got my Tubemeister 40 Hughes and Kettner amp on. I've got an old TV stand that's got a glass front on it. It's convenient for keeping disc and stuff like that. It's got shelves in it, and I can see what's in there. Real convenient. It's not the ideal situation, but the way I'm arranging it, it's going to be good. I'm going to have a box in there that I could catalog all my SD cards in. Plus, I can keep my CDs in there, and DVDs in there. I've got a DV converter from VHS, and I've got some old VHS tapes where I played with dulcimers at Horsepins 40 in their barn. We did several things there, and I've got it on DVD, back when I could play the banjo. And that was right after I just started playing with dulcimers. And it's totally different kind of playing when you play with a dulcimer. There's a different rhythm, a different tuning for the banjo. The only way you can play with the dulcimers, you've got to tune an open A and capo up to the 5th fret so you can play in D. And that way you're not overpowering the dulcimer. When you capo up like that, you can play a lot softer without all that loud twang. And that's the reason in some of my earlier videos you would see a paper towel wadded up and stuffed behind the bridge. That was to mute the sound, to keep from overpowering playing with dulcimers and other type instruments like that. But I've got to get my machine set up here in the studio to convert my VHS tapes to DVD. And I've got a lot of cassette tapes I really should have recorded on a cassette player that I had. I've got one song that we did for my mother-in-law's funeral. We redid the song. It's Send the Same Angel. Now, I don't know if that thing's copyrighted. I'll have to find out if it is. But we changed the song for it to be Send the Same Angel for my mama that you sent for my sister, or something like that, because her sister had died. But my mother-in-law requested that I redo that song for her, and that I redo it to play for her funeral. And that's what we did. And I don't care if it gets some kind of copyright strike, but that was done strictly for her funeral, the way we changed it up. And we did a cappella, and we did, it was a good friend of mine, kin to that guy in the picture back here. He's from Virginia, that area. And my brother and my sister-in-law. Of course, she had a bad cold, and but she came over and we recorded it anyway. And the recorder that we were using worked fine all the way through that, and when we got the final take, we ended up accepting the first take we did on it, which is usually what happens in a studio. But anyway, when we did the last recording on that machine, one whole side of it burned out right then. Talk about some signs from above. And I was fortunate I was able to buy another cassette tape player and recorder just like that when I've got it down here under the bench. It does really good recordings. We had too much power on it that night and didn't have any choice. We had to use what we had available that night. That was the night before the funeral. But anyway, we redid that song, and I'll play that tape. I've got it downstairs in my wife's funeral arrangement package with all the stuff we did for her funeral. Well, old and crackadated. And let me put this together with that video in the shop and the little bit I did with my new Deluxe Reverb amp. I'm really happy with that thing. I spent a lot of time on it last night. I was going to do some stuff outside, but I've been so tired. Had so many irons in the fire, and it's hard to tend them all. Well, let me put this together and I'll put out a little short video. Well, old and crackadated is building his speaker cab, and I thought, well, I've got all this OSB laying around, so I just decided this is the panel that's going to have the hole cut in it for the speaker. Now let me show you the speaker cab. Put down here on the ground. It turned out it's not a dynamite box, it's a electric blasting cap box. Made in Great Britain. Licensed 500 electric blasting caps, handled carefully. I thought it had the company name on it, but I guess it's been painted over. These other sides were painted, and then later they took some vinyl and covered it. And this was, I think they actually used it as it was either a side table or a TV stand, but it had legs screwed in it here. I may just sand that paint off right there, because I'm going to leave this the way it is. I may cover the thing with, I've got some upholstery fabric that came from Allegro motorhome factory. I've got it in brown and gray, and I think I'll do the gray on it. And I think the speaker front will be gray. So that's what I'm making the cab in. and that's the way it'll fit in. I'll put the rough side to the inside, smooth side outside. But I've got to cut me some pieces to put around the sides of it where this will fit flush. But the way it is right now, I've got mountains of dog and cat hair to brush out of here. But it don't turn out pretty good. I've got a portable jigsaw. It's a tabletop jigsaw. I've got a circle cutting jig for it. And, oh, I tell you, I've made big use of that little portable jigsaw. You pick it up, it's got a handle built into the side of it, and it's a quick change out blade. You got blade guard, then you've got all these circle templates and taper templates and everything. It's got a cutting fence on it. It's a good little outfit. I'll bring it out and maybe show the cutting of the circle on it. Okay, I've got the hole cut in the front, and it will fit right in there. There it is. I've got to put a strip up each side, one across the top and bottom, where I can just slap that in and put the screws in it. And you have to put the screws pretty close together on these or they'll vibrate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the top, and at least 6 down the length, not counting the 5 across the top, 5 across the bottom. Does it meet your approval, Ruff? Yeah, my little supervisors. I think I'll show the final assembly in the studio when I'm putting it together. I've got to cut my strips to go in there and screw them. Well, I need to glue them in. I've got the clamps upstairs. My Ruffy baby, my Ridgy baby, she's got her pretty little collar, pretty little pink collar for a beautiful lady. Oh yes, if I didn't have my puppies, I couldn't get anything done. And I think what I'm going to do for screws, I'm going to use sheet metal screws for metal roofing with the rubber gaskets on them. And I think what I'll do is use, I've got some dark red screws I think I'll use on it. Give it a little contrast. If I didn't have Ruff right up on me, oh, I couldn't get anything done. When I was sawing out this circle, he had to stand there and watch everything I did from start to finish. You're a good puppy, Ruff. Yeah, I can't wait to try that Spkr out. It's gonna be good. Well, old and crackadated got his brand new Fender Deluxe Rvevrb in that beautiful cream. Let's see how it fares. Well, I think it's going to be okay. It was bashed in on the what I thought was the face of it, but that turns out to be the back, so everything's okay. I hope. I can get this out of here. I had to do this over here on this side because I'm fixing to move the bed out of the studio where I'll have that room for the oh, ain't it pretty? 100-watt Deluxe Reverb in the blonde. That whole box is heavy as it can be. The amp is not heavy, but it's got the pedal. And the cover. See if I can find the pedal. Oh, okay, the pedal's in the back. It all stores in the back. Instruction book. I can get the Velcro strap undone. I don't have 1 gigabyte left on that card. And there's the pedal. Well, let me turn the camera off and I'll go ahead and get this box out of the way. After I see that it works, box. Okay, what you're looking at here is part of the control board that used to belong to the Amazing Rhythm Aces. They used it as their road board. But that's the controls for it. And of course I've got a power supply for it over on the other side of the room. And this orange piece right here is one of 2 rails that all these will be mounted to. They mount with these holes right here. Standard rack mount screws hold them in. And of course I've got all the wood to build a new frame for it, because the old frame was so old and it just fell completely apart last time it was moved, so it was not usable anymore. And here is the speaker that's going to go in my speaker cabinet. And I'm just about to run out of battery. Eminence Man of War, 120 watt, 8 ohm. But this is my workbench here. And of course I've got, and this right here is a video hookup for boosting video signal if you got to run cables over 100 feet. I've got a lot of that kind of stuff here. Of course, I'm trapped, can't get all the way across the room here. It's not all that wide, but I've got several guitar kits in boxes behind me here. I can't back up any further. But this is my little workbench, and of course I've got my pickup winding machines there. And there's my solder, but this is where I do my work, my little workbench, where I work on guitars and stuff. But I've got to put the frame together for this thing and get these parts mounted. But I've got a lot of cleanup to do. If you'll notice the hand dirt on all that stuff. I mean, I've got to use alcohol to clean all that stuff up and be very careful that I don't destroy any of the stuff on there. I've got some switches that need replacing and some slides that, see how loose they are. I'll have to correct them. There's a lot of them that's in good shape, but there's a few that's just loose. But that was used on a TV show many years ago as their control board. Can't remember whether it was Frank Capra or who it was that had a weekly rock and roll show on TV, but that was their original control board. Then Rhythm Aces bought it, and then my brother ended up with it. And I'm going to be reworking everything and putting it all together. And I may mount it here on the wall with a slide system to where it slides flush against the wall, and then I can just pull it out. Had to change out the battery pack. That's the batteries that go in this camera. I've got a couple of spares now instead of having to work off of one. But anyway, I'm starting to work on this board to reassemble it. I've got my pine boards to build the frame out of, and then these orange pieces that will go full length of it. I've got the power supply sitting over at the side of the room. Got too much light coming in over there to be able to show it. But this is my little workbench. I've got a lot of stuff piled on it right now, but I've got 3 intense days of moving and rearranging stuff. When I set up my electronic drum set, I got a bunch of stuff out of whack here in this little hallway between the 2 big rooms. And this right here is just a dormer, which I use as my workshop. Don't need any more room than this bench. I get everything off of it. I've got a rack that I'm going to be setting up that I can move a lot of this stuff off of and have it outside the door here. It's going to make a big difference. I bought 2 racks like I've got in the studio where I've got a couple of my amplifiers on. And once I get them set up, it's going to eliminate a lot of clutter. And clutter will slow you down quicker than anything. But this board is big when you get it all put together. I've got several other components of it over there. It's about, I'm thinking, around 5 feet wide when you get it all assembled. But I couldn't get all the parts on top of my desk right now and be able to clean them up and work on them. I dread taking those things apart and working on those slides. But that's a time-consuming thing. Well, old and crackadated, just thought I'd show you what's going on here with my desk. And here's the speaker cover that'll be going on it, on my cabinet. But when I set up my shelf, then I'll move all this stuff off and then put my speaker box up here and finish the work on it. And I've got to move that bed. That's one thing that's holding up a bunch of stuff. Well, old and crackadated. If it can, it will, and it probably already has, and I'll probably find it later.